Today, as I mentioned, we're talking about coronavirus and college admission. Today, we learn how COVID-19 is impacting recruiting for the class of 2025 with Associate Vice President for Admission and Financial Aid, Jennifer Sandoval-Dance. We're also hearing from Edna Elner-Wicker, who's been, I think we agreed, Edna, you've been there since 2005. So both you and Jen, I think, started about the same time. Edna runs our alumni interviewer program and keeps and really is the nuts and bolts of the admission office. So Edna, we're grateful to have you here as well. And we have 3 students that I'll let Jennifer introduce shortly. We're talking today about virtual recruiting and campus visits and how CMC reads files in a test optional environment. The session will also focus on the importance of volunteers in this remote environment and how alumni and parents can help in the selection process of representing CMC in all corners of the globe. We will be sharing screens as we have presentations. So Jennifer, I'll hand it off to you. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. So college admission is always a hot topic, a topic that most people just can't get enough of, partially because of the opaque nature, and it's something that is exciting and kids look forward to it, and it's a great process for kids and families to go through. So and now we have a pandemic to filter through all of that and to manage this process, both for prospective students, for admission officers, for parents. And together, we've all definitely been working through this since last March when we really got going into this pandemic. So what we're going to talk about today is virtual recruiting, the various elements that we have implemented to take everything that we used to do in person, whether that was traveling to go somewhere or folks coming to campus, how we brought that to folks and what really some of the highlights have been, but also what some of the challenges have been. And that's where our seniors are going to come in because they really are interacting every day on a regular basis with our prospective students and having the privilege to represent the college. So they'll share and flesh out more about that. Then we'll talk about the actual application admission process. We're going to start actually reviewing applications next week for our QuestBridge cohort. So we're right there front and center. We've been adjusting and adapting, and I'll talk a bit about that. And then Edna will go over more about interviews and the alumni interview process. And then I am happy to flesh out and talk more about just ways that you can be engaged with us and help us out on this recruitment journey. We're always recruiting classes. Right now we're focused on the class of 2025, but the reality is we're interfacing with students that are going to be applying to college at some point in the future, and as parents who are going to have kids through the process. So recruiting, there's no end cycle to that. We're doing that all the time, every day. Okay, so the virtual recruitment plan, if you would have told me this time last year, heck, if you would have told me in January that we were not going to be in the admission office, that we were not going to have guests filling up our lobby in the summer, in the fall, on Saturdays, that we were not going to be all over the world recruiting students, I would have said, no way, no way would we be reduced to really recruiting not only the class of 2024, but also continuing to recruit in a purely virtual environment. It just would have been, it would have seemed too insurmountable. Yet here we are. And really, it's been amazing. While certainly we all cannot wait till we're back on campus. I'm not saying we want to persist completely virtual, but we have learned so much about ways to engage with high school students, counselors, families from across the globe in a variety of different ways that we never could have accomplished if we were just doing that, traveling and on campus. So while we know our campus is our showcase and we all can't wait to get back there, we're so passionate about that, we really were able and have been able to continue to do so to build out a very strong virtual recruitment program that has brought Claremont McKenna and the various different elements that make us who we are to our prospective students and our families and our high school counselors and everybody who's wanting to learn more about us. So videos, we have about a 12-minute information session that's on the main CMC website. We also have a modified campus tour that was recorded right before the students left campus, and other videos that folks upload that are related to things going on campus. So that's one way. Students love videos. They love having it on. Even in this virtual world, this is a great way for them to get the pictures, especially since they're not able to actually be on the campus and see the campus. So we are hosting information sessions. We host 3 a week at a variety of different times, so folks from around the globe can tune in. The campus tours are actually in some ways my favorite part. To think that you could take something like a campus tour and make that virtual is quite amazing. And our students created an incredible PowerPoint to really make you feel like you are on the campus. And I told Evan at some point, maybe that the students could do tours for our alumni and our parents at some point later in 2020 or early 2021, because you'd be quite amazed how well that has taken off, and our students and our prospective students are able to enjoy that. Student panels. So while information sessions, campus tours, anybody can participate in, the student panels are just for students. We are really, really adamant about that this be student to student, prospective student to current CMC students. So they have that authenticity and they feel that they're able to be honest in those conversations. So, and then we're continuing to conduct interviews. So all those kinds of things, now virtual. The amazing thing about the interviews, so we have been able to conduct more interviews than we ever have been able to, because we have more seniors interviewing. We weren't limited by the constraints of physically being in the office and only having 5 offices. They are full. There are no more interviews for students to sign up. If they want to sign up with what I call an on-campus interview, a senior interviewer, they can still sign up with alumni. But this is the first time that they have ever filled up in October. Usually it takes us through early November. So quite extraordinary that students have engaged in that way. We continue to do virtual school visits. Most schools are, even if we were traveling, they're not welcoming visitors. So lots of that. College fairs, you'd be surprised how many things have been taken completely virtual and had very significant engagement in that process. So I've done some sessions specifically for parents and families. So now let's go ahead and do the first poll question. It's the number of virtual school visits we will complete this fall. So feel free to go ahead as I'm chatting through to do that. We also, some of you may know that we actually recruit with other colleges and universities. So we've been doing this, the other Claremont colleges. We travel with a group known as 8 of the Best. We also travel with some schools through the American Talent Initiative. So we've been doing that. And basically we've expanded those group visits, virtual visits. So we've been doing more topic driven. I guess we can, if folks feel like you've gotten a chance to vote. So we feel that we've been able to expand that and do more topic driven things. So let's talk about, student clubs and organizations and have a student panel about this. Let's talk more about what does holistic admission mean? So we feel that we've been able to get so much more messaging out for folks who want to keep and stay dialed in regarding all of this. Okay. Whoa, you guys are right. Yes, 414. That is right. That's how many we're going to have conducted. Great job. Okay, so if you go to our website, which Darren had pulled up there a picture of, you will get to see at any point in time how much is actually going on a given day. We are getting towards the end of our official recruitment season. As I was mentioning, we're actually going to start reading files next week. So we're starting to wrap up this more intense stage of it, but we will continue to have campus tours and information sessions as we always do when we're on campus throughout the academic year. So, reflections from our students. There would never be a student session. There would never be an admission process without students. And I felt it was critical that you all have the opportunity to hear from students who have actually been recruiting in this virtual realm with us since we started, and they've continued to do so. So we're gonna go ahead and I'll have they're gonna go in this order. I'll have each of them introduce themselves. So we're gonna start with Adrienne.
Hi, my name is Adrienne, and I'm a current senior at CMC. I'm studying psychology and dance through scripts, along with a leadership sequence. And on campus, I'm a tour guide and senior interviewer, so I work a lot in admissions. I'm also in an a cappella group called Midnight Echo, and I work in a research lab called the Metrics Lab with Professor Jennifer Feitosa, and we study how to maximize the benefits of diversity in teams. And this semester, I'm also a Kravis Leadership Institute thesis research fellow and getting funding for some of my thesis research, which has been really nice. And then in the past, I was also a FIG with a first year guide with GOS. So I can go more. Jeremy and Renalini, do you want to first introduce yourselves as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to hear everyone and see everyone. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to talk about the things we have to talk about. My name is Jeremy Xiao. I am a current senior at CMC studying computer science and economics with a sequence in financial economics. At the Office of Admission, I wear a few hats. I work as a senior interviewer, something I love to do. I work as one of the social media managers, something I'll definitely touch in and dive in on a bit later. And I also work as a tour guide. So having a lot of fun things to do around the office. Outside the Office of Admission, I am the captain of the men's rugby team. It's a really well-storied program, which I thoroughly enjoy. I am a research analyst at the Financial Economic Institute, specifically diving into topics surrounding financial technology or fintech, something that's the intersection of my academic passions. Outside of FEI, I also am the executive chef of the Cooking and Baking Club on campus, which I started. Deep love for food, something that I've definitely grew up eating a lot of and just thinking about. That's one of my passions. And I'm also a volunteer at the Food Recovery Network, which is kind of a charity network that we have on campus.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Mrinalini. I'm also a senior at CMC. I'm from New Delhi, India. I'm an international student like Jeremy, but currently I'm in Rhode Island living with a few friends. On campus, I work with admissions, so I do the senior interviews and then I also give tours. I also work at the Care Center as a student fellow. I work with public affairs, so I do some of CMC's social media and external relations work. And I just this year joined as a student representative, the trustee committee for college advancement. And similar to Adrian, I was also a FIG in the past. And also I'm studying economics and psychology.
So I guess to start, I'll touch a little bit on tours. I also forgot to mention I'm originally from Maryland, but I'm spending this semester in La Jolla, actually living with some other CMC seniors, which has been definitely nice to not be in the cold. And so, yeah, tours. So I mentioned I'm a tour guide and senior interviewer with admissions, and I've also been doing panels this semester. Generally, everything's been going really smoothly. I think that some highlights that I've found on a virtual platform, one major one is just the accessibility of our tours. I've had so many students, whether they're international or just wouldn't be able to come in a normal year because they wouldn't be able to pay for the flight or their parents wouldn't be able to come with them or some other alternative reason. But now they can do a virtual tour. They just hop on a Zoom link and get a really personalized experience. So I think that that has been a real kind of perk of moving to a virtual platform. And I think along with that, tours on a virtual platform and panels are really kind of personalized and intimate in a weird way. I've had a lot of really small groups where students are really able to go into questions and there's not an admissions officer or their parents there. Usually their parents aren't there. So they're really able to ask questions that they might not feel comfortable asking in a huge room with a bunch of people, which I found to be a pretty big perk. And I've also found generally this semester, Jeremy and Mrinalini, I don't know if you found this also, but I've had more prospies reach out to me over email that want to call or talk about CMC or the leadership sequence or something. And I haven't necessarily had this many students reach out in the past. So I think that just being on a virtual platform has kind of given students a little bit of more confidence in their ability to reach out virtually and just say, hi, I want to learn about this or this, and or I just want to go into your experiences at CMC. And I've had a lot of really good one-on-one conversations with students that are trying to decide whether to apply or trying to decide what major they would want to major in at CMC. So I found that really special. And like it was mentioned, but the tour slides are so beautiful. It's a really well put together PowerPoint. I'd say the biggest challenge is just giving justice to kind of representing the warmth and sense of community that you really get from being on campus during tours. I know that that's the reason that I decided to apply ED to CMC, because of the warmth and sense of community that I felt. So I'm trying, but sometimes it's hard. People feel shy and awkward and they don't want to turn their video on. I try to encourage them to. So sometimes it's hard to just match that sense of personalization and the small talk and the intros at the beginning. But I think that the admissions office has obviously been doing a wonderful job, including a new virtual welcome center that we're using to connect with students. So definitely a lot of highlights, but it's definitely been challenging. And I think that I feel how exhausted some of the seniors are who I've spoken to.
Yeah, going off what Adrian said, she touched on like so many amazing things. And first of all, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Lindsay Larson, class of 22. So she's the one who actually put the slides together and is part of the social media team, which I'll gladly dive into right now. So if you haven't liked us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, please go ahead and do so. We're trying to drive engagement and reach out to prospective students, families, and just anyone we can kind of get outreach to. So please definitely go do that. As for the social media team, we had a bunch of whole great initiatives while we're on campus. One thing we think everyone would enjoy is CMC throwbacks. So we've kind of dived into the old CMC photo archives and started recreating them. So you can scroll back on our Facebook and Instagram. There's some really, really cool photos that we found in the past and try to recreate. So we had a lot of fun with that. But unfortunately, once we had to go separate ways, we did have to brainstorm how to continue these initiatives and continue these photo series and continue these engagements that we had while not on campus. The team stayed up to date with a lot of the social unrest issues and relayed the messages that President Chodosh issued on behalf of the school. So we found that we became a really important talking point or connection point between the Office of Admission and the student body or prospective students. So that's something really important to us that we're getting through. One thing that we've been trying to do is we've been working really hard to keep up student engagement. We've been posting photos of school for people who live around school. We're adding like interactive stories to our Instagram and Facebook pages, just fun little things to be like, hey, remember this? Like, what's the best study spot on campus? And kind of trying to keep people's spirits up almost. We're also trying to keep our outreach to prospective students and families up. So you're posting like interactive stories to our Instagram and Facebook pages, doing student Q&As, which I think is definitely important. And please definitely send us photos, like our posts, share them on your respective social medias. We love any form of engagement. So even have old photos or like photos you took in college or anything related to the school, definitely send it our way, either to the Office of Admission email or to any of our individual social media accounts. And we'd love to repost any of that. One thing Adrian touched on as well is student panels. Is something I've been sitting on as well that I really thoroughly enjoy. I've sat on large panels that involve CMC, USD, Vanderbilt, and a whole bunch of like other schools around the nation. I've sat in on 5C panels, so all the schools at the 5Cs. I even sat in on some major specific panels. Every once in a while, I give one talking about STEM at Claremont, McKenna, and kind of computer science specifically. I also sit on a Southeast Asian student panel because I'm from Singapore originally, but currently in San Francisco, finishing up my senior year. So it's really fun because I really enjoy diving in on a specific topic, like my STEM major or kind of like Southeast Asia students at CMC, as well as kind of giving a general overview of the school like I do in tours or sometimes during interviews. Students do usually take a while to warm up. Their videos are off, no one will ask a question. We kind of have to go and talk about different things. So as they start doing so, it's really enjoyable because they start talking about really school-specific questions and questions that's specific to us and to them. So it's not like there's an administrator in the room or their parents in the room. It's just student to student. And it's really like fun to hear what a lot of these students have to say, what they're worried about. And it's a really authentic space, which is why I like it. And Adrian definitely mentioned this as well, but one really awesome initiative that we've started is called the Wiser program. And that's kind of a welcome center to all prospective students. And what it is, it's an online community where prospective students can reach out to current students and admission staff and talk about almost anything from how do I write this on my Common app, or like what's like the best dorm to live in, or what's the best food to eat, which is the best dining hall, to questions like I'm from like Southeast Asia, like I'm worried that like about culture shock and like won't fit in, like how is this and this, how is your experience? And it's been a really nice like touch point between current students and prospective students, because usually during on tours, we get to talk to them after the tours, talk to them when they tour the school. But now because we don't have that in-person kind of ability to talk to them, this program is really, really amazing because it allows to like build these authentic, intimate connections that we wouldn't have otherwise without it. I'll leave it to Mrinalini to talk about senior interviews, and those are definitely fun. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
Awesome. I just want to definitely attest to the fact that the social media team is doing such a great job of making CMC's Instagram so accessible. Public affairs were always trying to like model off of the CMC admission Instagram just because you guys do a great job. But just to touch a little bit upon senior interviews, before I do that, I also wanted to share that I also sat on one of the like student panels specifically for India. And I think one thing that's really important and really unique is that because they're virtual, people that are in different parts of the world find it very easy to just hop on a call and learn more about a school, something that I honestly found hard to do when I was first looking at CMC and other colleges, because everything was very much in-person oriented. And that goes to say for senior interviews as well. I think what's great about senior interviews online now is that anybody and everybody can just hop on a call if they have access to Wi-Fi or internet at home or elsewhere. And I think that makes it really special and has led to increased traction when it comes to interviews for the team. I think last week we got an email from Becky, who kind of manages all of us, telling us that every interview we're offering is booked out completely for the entire semester. And she asked if people had more, space to do extra interviews over and above what we're already offering. And I think that's really special. And it goes to show that having this virtual platform, while it is unfortunate we can't be in person and make use of that in-person connection, this opens doors to a whole new set of people that may not have otherwise signed up for an interview or had access to an interview if they were, in a different country, or just timings and match up. And I think that is something that's very special about the program. In terms of the actual interview, what I think is great is that even though it's on Zoom, we've all been trained so well to ask questions and sort of create a setting that creates comfort. And so it often just ends up being a conversation. And sometimes I just lose track of time. Whereas I feel like if I was in person, I'd be pressed for time and just be like, okay, gotta go to class now. Whereas now I'm kind of like happy to spend those extra 10 minutes answering questions. One trend I've noticed is people always reach out afterwards, if not always, then often reach out afterwards with questions. And I think it's also just easier personally for me to connect people, interviewees with other people, just because I just have to hop on like a little call or send a little text. And I think that makes it very, very easy. So especially for somebody who applied ED to CMC without ever visiting, I think this virtual programming, the tours as well that we've been giving, have made it very, very easy for everyone to get access. And that's at the crux of the program. I think in terms of challenges, initially, I was very worried that you won't be able to create rapport with someone that you're interviewing just on a virtual kind of setting. But I think that, like Adrian mentioned in the chat, Megan, Becky, just all the other people on the admissions staff have made it so easy for us to get trained well to be able to do so. And yeah, I think it's gone pretty smoothly. I think that students are, just from what I've gauged from the students I've interviewed, are very appreciative of the fact that CMCers are taking out the time, even though we're not on campus, to maintain that sense of community. And they definitely do feel it. I've given some like one-on-one tours even. And the fact that if there were like 2 tour guides in a Zoom meeting and then 2 people attending the tour, we split them and we gave them individual tours. They thought that was very, very special. And so I think we've definitely been able to put that message across that we're trying our best to kind of have people feel welcome and have people feel present on campus without them actually being there.
Thank you so much for that feedback. And folks, feel free to, in the chat, if there are ideas that you've had that you've seen other schools do that you think we should consider and think about. And yes, thank you all for mentioning the Virtual Welcome Center, which we implemented just a few weeks ago. So we're excited to continue to get that going and have folks on this call engaged in that as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start the second poll. And this is about interviews. And while we're doing that, I'll get started on the application process. So the application process in many ways is going to be the same as it always has. Students are going to complete an application. The only additional aspect of their application, an additional piece of all students' application will be a COVID-19 question. So in the application, there was always a question about, if there's anything additional you'd like to share. That question has always been for disproportionate impact, right? So for students to share things that that were above extraordinarily either positive or negative. Same thing with the pandemic. The pandemic question is designed to tailor. We know everybody's been impacted by the pandemic, but some disproportionately so. So if a young person, if the impact of the pandemic has been disproportionate, then that is where they would do it. Okay, so we can share the results now. Oops. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the correct answer is actually C, 20%. I know. We're trying to get interview as many students as possible, but like I said, we've continued to add to the fleets there, but that's way up from what it was even 2 or 3 years ago. It used to be about 12 to 15% of the students interviewed. Okay, so yeah, so the common application will have the pandemic question. Also the high school counselor, they fill out a school report. That's gonna also provide opportunities for them. It gives them drop-down boxes of they're virtual, they were virtual, they went to pass, no pass. So it makes it easier for them to go through and fill out how the academic calendar, grading, anything else, co-curricular, extracurricular was impacted, or maybe in their specific community, there were additional challenges that they faced. So they're gonna go ahead and comment and give us that frame to understand that. The grading policy, we're gonna need to understand that for many students, every student had a disruption, some for the entire spring semester, depending on where they were located, but really understanding and getting a good sense of where they were at, how they responded, and where they're at now. Testing, we're test optional, so we're actually not going to use it as part of our academic assessment. Normally, how we evaluate students academically, the high school transcript has always been the centerpiece. So I've been getting this question, so is the high school transcript going to mean more? No, it's actually always meant more. It is what we spend more time on. It is 3.5 years when we're evaluating a student of their work. It's across subject areas. What you do in a class in a semester or a year allows you to show your mastery of content. It allows a student to show us the different ways that they're engaging and wrestling with the material versus sitting for an exam for one morning, right? So not to standardized tests do their own thing in their own part, but the high school transcript will always be the heart. So that's what we're gonna have now. We're gonna have, normally we look at the curriculum, the grades, and then scores. It's usually 1/3 that they get for the total academic rating. We're actually, when it comes to scores, they're not going to be part of the academic assessment. Too few students had the opportunity to take the test, and those who were able to take the test did not do it under ideal circumstances. Either they took it as a sophomore or fall of their junior year, or they took it under pandemic conditions. So we don't believe it's going to be a helpful tool in our process. So while students can report it, it's not going to be part of our academic assessment. So we need to be sensitive to just how this pandemic has impacted the student's search. Early decision, regular decision. Right now, our early decision numbers are tracking on par with how they have in the past. So we're anticipating that those numbers will be similar, but we don't really know. Students aren't able to visit campus. They're not able to get a sense of the area of Claremont, the kinds of things that they've been thinking about. Or that would lead to them applying early decision as our seniors fleshed out a bit. So we're not sure what impact that's going to have. We're hearing nationally that students are reticent to apply early decision, but right now we're not yet seeing that in our process. Financial aid, big concerns. Prior year, meaning that financial aid looks at the prior tax year. So for this class, 2024, we looked at 2018. For the class of 2025, we're going to look at 2019, okay, for that group. That's going to cause a lot of anxiety for families. So our process is conditional and flexible, and we're able to evaluate that, but that is going to be a concern for families, especially if a college or university is just using the free application for federal student aid. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Edna, to talk more about, she'll go into more depth on what the interviewers look at, but specifically focused on the alumni.
Edna, I think you're on mute.
You're muted, Edna, yes.
Unmute, yeah, I'm sorry. I have the permission to share my screen. So, okay. So this is the screen now? Okay.
Edna, go ahead and start the slideshow too.
Okay, slideshow. Good afternoon all, and thank you for coming. Welcome to this session. My name is Edna Elnar Wicker, and I run and manage this alumni interviewer program. And here's what I plan to cover during this session. I'll start with a brief overview of the program, Alumni Interviewer Program, and share with you CMC's vision statement, and talk very briefly about the application components with emphasis and focus on the interview, how alumni interviewer reports help in admission decision, and I'll wind it up with some concluding thoughts and open it up for Q&A. So I have been in the alumni program interviewer program for about 15 years. And we started with about like as few as 44 alumni interviewers. And for the purpose of this presentation, I would just like to focus your attention on the last column, which is for the academic year 2019-2020. And if you could just please look at the numbers in red. So over the years, our alumni interviewers have increased, and last year we have almost double or triple, more than triple our numbers. So we had a total of 151 alumni interviewers. And altogether, they interviewed 458 prospective students. And of the 458 that they interviewed, we offer an admission to 69 of them. And of the 69 students that we offered admission to, actually we have 43 of them here now at CMC, our first year students. And of the 69, unfortunately, we had 20 students who declined our offer of admission. Just so it helps you understand how selective CMC has become, we denied some 231 applications. And to help us understand why we're doing what we are doing, let me share with you CMC's vision statement. And it says, college seeks to enroll a diverse and increasingly talented student body comprised of individuals with established records of achievement in academic and co-curricular activities. And our admission professionals are trying to target students who aspire future responsible, like leadership positions in the future, and students who are diverse in these areas as gender, ethnicity, race, geographic region, and life experiences. Now, let me talk briefly about the application components. These are all too familiar to all of you out there who have been students at CMC. So, in the first 5 bullets are actually the required documents when you apply to CMC. And the optional credential is what I'm going to talk about more. And that is the interview report or the interview. And just brief information, beginning in 2013, we transitioned to completely online application using the Common App. So why are we doing the interview? First, to get the interviewer's impression of the students in terms of their skills, in terms of their passion and interests, their accomplishments, how involved they are in the community, and a sense of their personality and values. Second, to communicate the interviewer's positive feelings about CMC. And finally, for the student to have a good experience during the interview. And now on the interview itself. So understand that interview, this days and age during the pandemic, everything is done online and virtually. And there will only be one interview that is allowed for a student. So for the alumni interviewers to be able to help us in terms of interviewing, we suggest that you cover the following areas. And there's 5 of them, which I will talk briefly in the next few slides. The first is student and family background. Yeah, try to put your interviewee at ease first before you even start your interview session. Make them feel comfortable and at ease. And in our experience, once an interviewee is comfortable and at ease, you will have your interviewee being so engaged, and the conversation will go on smoothly, and versus a student who is nervous. And then, so you can start and begin your interview by talking about topics that are very familiar with them. So what are those? Well, they can talk, you can ask them to talk about themselves. So their passion, their interest, and ask them also to talk about their family, their parents, what are their occupations, and then siblings, and maybe talk about whether they are still living with the family or they're off to college. And here you can also try to explore any disruptions in the family life. This is to help us understand whether there's going to be some academic challenges or maybe academic inconsistencies. The student may be a straight A, and maybe in their senior or third year, the students' grades have started to come down. So maybe there may be some disruptions such as health issues, especially during the pandemic. Or maybe this time, or in the third year of the student, the father, who is the breadwinner, lost his job, and so on and so forth. So these are just examples of disruptions that you may want to explore during the interview. The second area is about academic background and interest. Find out if the student has taken full advantage of the academic resources that are available in the high school. And why is the student interested in the specific field or the specific academic interest? Do you think that the student has a deeper or better understanding of the field that is being pursued, or is it just superficial? Ed mentioned the discussion-oriented classroom environment at CMC. This is where you can gauge whether the student is actually going to thrive when they are in CMC. You know that when they are at CMC, their beliefs, their ideas will be challenged by the fellow classmates, their peers, and their professors. Likewise, they can also challenge the beliefs and opinions of their peers. And this is also the time that you can assess their critical and analytical skills, as well as assess their intellectual curiosity. And now, how involved is the student in terms of their activities outside of the classroom? You can assess about their energy level and what projects, what initiatives, what programs they are actually implementing outside of the classroom, and have those programs or projects have any impact in the class or outside of the classroom, in the community. And because of those initiatives or projects, do they earn them some recognition, whether it's local or internationally? And find out the students' criteria for selecting a college. So what criteria or qualities does the student actually use in evaluating a college? What expectations do they have for a college experience? And who is assisting the student in the selection process? Now, at the bottom, I say, do not ask the student where else they are applying or planning to apply. Beginning in 2017, the NACAC, National Association of College Admission Counseling, made it unethical for any admission officer to ask where the students, where else they're planning to apply. Now, at the interview, if the student talks about the schools, just listen, but do not include them in your interview report, okay? And next, the contact with and exposure to CMC. How has the student's interest in CMC developed? Did he have any contact with a CMC, current seniors, like the awesome seniors that we just heard from? Have they contacted any of the alums or our faculty or staff or friends? And have they attended any of our so many opportunities like online information session, tours, and so on and so forth? How much of the student knows and understands about CMC? How aware is the student of what makes CMC distinctive? Okay, so I guess you're now ready with your interview report. How does an alumni interview report help actually in figuring out the admission decision? Your interview report contributes and gives input to the decision process. Your personal view of the student's background, your assessment about their intellectual curiosity, their interest, and so on and so forth. And that would be helpful for the admission committee to see a very good picture, a better picture, or a fuller picture about the student. And your assessment could also reveal important aspects about the student. Did the student actually have any challenges that they overcame because of their resilience? And were there some support systems that were available? Your interview report may also provide information that is not available elsewhere. Here you can talk about their social skills. And last but not the least, in some cases, your interview could serve as a deciding factor regarding the admissibility of the student. It's safe to say here that the interview will not get you in CMC. However, your thorough report, your comprehensive report may sway the final admission decision. So in closing, I'll say thank you very much, all our alumni interviewers out there. You've been so great. You've been so helpful to us. And we count on you year after year after year. Please recognize that you contribute in a very careful selection process, and your thorough interview reports help the admission committee in their making their final decision. And finally, your interviews make it possible for students to personally and virtually meet a distinguished CMC year. So thank you.
Thanks,
And
Edna.
we are now open for any questions.
And I will say, if anyone is curious about becoming an alumni interviewer, please do email Edna. You can also email myself or email Jen. We're halfway through this year's process, but we always start again in August. And Edna always wants, and so do I, we always want more alumni interviewers. We always want more Parent Network Board, admission liaison volunteers. So please reach out at any time, and we're happy to add you to the group. Jennifer, before you take it from here, a couple of quick questions for really anybody on here, including the students. One, Jen, what is the rationale from NACAC for not allowing us to ask where the students are applying?
Yes, it was the understanding in the profession was that it was not always being used to the advantage of the student. So somebody might look and go, well, why are they applying here if those are the other schools they're applying to? Or it really kind of was one of those spheres where that information really wasn't deemed to be essential, critical, even helpful to the process. And just out of fairness to protect the applicant from that, any of that entering into that space, it just, as a profession, we didn't think it was appropriate to ask that.
Thank you. We had a few alumni interviewers talk about how they're disappointed where sometimes their interviewees don't convert to applicants. How can we make sure or try to get as many of our interviewees to actually become applicants?
Well, I think a lot of that is in talking with them, the hope is that there's a semblance of a relationship, right? You've had a conversation with them, you've learned about them. Hopefully you've been able to draw something out in them where they feel a connection to the college. And so, that as the seniors were talking about, I think that connection is definitely being made. In some ways, it's being enhanced virtually with the students maybe feeling more comfortable. They can follow up because that connection was made that way. So I would say, and we can talk more about ways that alumni who are interviewing, ways that we can continue to keep those students in the pipeline. Because a lot of it is, there's a lot of schools are looking at, a lot of things that they're doing as they're going through the process. Sometimes some of them sign up for interviews, for the 20 schools that they're looking at. That's why sometimes these interviews get taken so quickly and so early. But some of it is just a natural process, right? They're interviewing a little bit early. They want to get that opportunity in, and then they just naturally might change their mind. But happy to explore ways we can continue to engage students with that pipeline.
Great. And to our students, our student interviewers, what skills have you learned this year from the virtual environment that you think will help you in your future careers?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think If I could jump in first, sorry, y'all. One thing I've really learned how to do is kind of read the room in a virtual setting. I think one amazing thing about kind of the class we have on campus is we're like such a tight-knit community. So we could sit down in class and as we talk to people, be like, okay, maybe they didn't quite get that. Maybe they didn't like understand the point full, and you kind of read the room, read the body language. But sometimes on Zoom, even on panels and a lot of like my classes, there's like this awkward long pause where someone asks a question. It goes like, anyone have any questions or any thoughts? And there'll be this like awkward silence, just quiet. And I think something that we've really been able to pick on, like the soft skills, have been to like read people in a virtual setting. Someone doesn't get what you're saying, to build upon it. I think that's definitely one of the, like the soft skills that we have really picked up on. And leadership as well in like a virtual setting has also really been something that we're pushing on. So we've been really trying to take leadership outside of the Zoom classroom and continue to push leadership outside of the classes, be it in our small groups, be it in like our working groups, and even our like our on-campus jobs. It's really like outside of like your office, outside of the space that you typically work in. How else can you take leadership positions? How else can you use kind of your role to further the school and further the students around you? I think those are some really important skills that I've picked up, at least. I know that my fellow students have in the virtual environment.
Just to quickly, I completely agree with Jeremy, but one skill that I've learned is also just like riding the waves. Like if a Zoom call doesn't work and you get kicked out, that's okay. And I feel like it's made me just a lot calmer as a person to like embrace trouble or like issues and just turn them into something good. So that's like a little one.
Great. Jen, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, don't worry. I was just going to say, I think that it's forced me to really prioritize like work-life balance. Like everything is online and you just constantly are on the computer. So I like forced myself to like have a schedule that I follow where I can't be on the computer for certain hours. And I think that that will hopefully help me in my adult life.
Thanks, Adrian. Jen, we do have a question, but you might want to punt this until later on or throughout the rest of your presentation. It's about deferrals, what this year's freshman class looks like, what we think next year's freshman class will look like, and just how COVID will impact college admission for next year. I mean, are we going to admit more? Are we worried about yield or students becoming more provincial? Anything there? So you need to comment on that now, or we could talk about that later. Up to you.
I'll take that now, because that's a question, believe me, that is one that lots
$1 million question, right?
Oh yes, it is causing a lot of anxiety from a lot of angles. And I understand the deferments, CMC normally gets 3 to a dozen is the high end. And our reasons are the student has compulsory military service, they have a health, they did health procedure, or they truly have planned out this gap year, right? And so it's very consistent at CMC. You see like 4, 5, 6 who are picking for this reasons. And suddenly, to have the majority of students inquiring about deferments without even thinking about it before. That was a really tough spot for me when I was interacting with them, was what are you going to be doing? And why are you considering this? And let's help you think through this, because a year is a long time without a game plan. And we don't know what the world's going to continue to look like, or the country where you're at. So we did our best to manage that process, stay in touch with students. And yes, we ended up with 54 students who deferred for a future term. So definitely the highest end. But keep in mind, a couple of them may be joining us in the spring. And, and also some may just choose not to join us. A year's a long time. So as we look through and think about that, every step of the way, every week, actually, it was probably every single hour, I was going through and thinking, okay, if it stays like this and we're in ED2 and ED1, what's going to happen in the future? So I kept like pausing it and saying, what's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? How can we continue to honor these students wanting to take deferment and still have space? Because I was really worried, and I was honest about the class of 2025. People sometimes just seem to throw caution to the wind. So my colleagues, and I was like, that we have to consider that. And, right now, the way that it looks is we probably will take a few more students. Honestly, with early decision 1, we will probably be consistent. Early decision 2 kind of depends on that pool. With regular decision though, we plan on going out with about the same number, if not a little bit more. What might be impacted is the wait list. So I don't anticipate we're going to, right now, who knows though, I don't anticipate we're going to go to the wait list, because that number, that overage would have been the number we took from the wait list, about 2024. If we bring it in back to what we normally come out with, we probably just won't have space to take students from the wait list. And I don't know if we're going to have more deferments in this next year, because these seniors right now, I think, are really burnt out. They've just had a very stressful period, I think, in transition to their senior year, managing this college search process. So that's where, we're really stable right now. Could change. I mean, every day brings new information, but everything that we're seeing right now with engagement virtually, with application numbers, it just seems stable. So we'll continue to monitor that. I think for CMC at least, I think things will look great. For a lot of schools, honestly, they're going to need to fill a class. And so I think while I understand there's a lot of anxiety by the numbers, try not to get so worked up about that, because many colleges and universities know they have to see the class, and they've got to do that. And manage leaves of absence, all kinds of things that have been disrupted with the pandemic. Some of them had opened new dorms this last year. So from my colleagues' perspective, I don't think there's actually going to be much different.
Thanks, Jen. We have just a couple minutes left, so the rest of the floor is yours. So
Okay. Well,
we could talk for a long time.
Yes, you all know that. There really wasn't much else on this. I'll share this. Okay, so let's put up the third poll. This is about visiting campus, because one of the other things that I've gotten a lot of anxiety about is I can't visit campus. Well, a lot of students actually don't visit campus. A lot of students apply, and this isn't just CMC, this is nationally, sight unseen. And so this anxiety, while I understand it because it's out of their control, understand that a lot of students don't. So we'll go ahead and let that go. But these are just ways, I mean, we talked about this, being an alumni interviewer, as Evan talked about, great way to stay involved. Parent network board, I love working with the parents. I love having you involved in our process. One of the things I think the parents have been left out on is this, as great as it's been for the students. And I do think it has been extraordinary for the prospective students to walk a lot of this by themselves. And I think there's been a lot of reward that has come with that. It has left the parents out. They're not at those sessions. And so, yeah, we can go ahead and share the results. You guys got it right again. Great job. So it has made that part more difficult. And so I've tried to I've been holding sessions for parents and families, and I want to continue doing that and having the opportunity for them to have that space as well. And the interesting thing about the sessions I held was a lot of the parents and the students were together, and that was great. And we held one on financial aid as well. So yes, so really there was a question, or there's a comment about how do we get, are we gonna have to rely more on word of mouth? We've actually always had to rely on that. I mean, not to say CMC doesn't have an outstanding reputation, and there aren't a lot of students who are aware of the accomplishments of our collective community, but it's all of our jobs to amplify our individual accomplishments, the accomplishments of your peers, the accomplishment of faculty that you've worked with, because really that's what it's. I don't know how many students I've known throughout my 15 years here who it was a student of ours they met at their internship that actually connected them to CMC, or it was they were listening to NPR and they heard one of our faculty members speak and they didn't realize that we had this institute. And so that it's that connection point that they want to make, and then they come to learn how extraordinary the community really, really is. So that is, we shared that, right? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do the last poll, because this would be that last poll was 2019. So let's see of 2020, how many students visited campus. This would be our class of 2024. And then social media, Jeremy made his point, but continue to engage, follow us, share, and we're always open to things that other schools are doing, or that ways that you can think. One of the things the pandemic has taught me is just stop thinking about the way you used to do it. This is a whole new platform, and it's actually inspired just different conversations of ways of seeing things and recruiting students and having conversations with them. So that's been exciting. All right, let's go ahead and share these results here. So you got it right again. You guys are great. Great, you can all be enrollment managers here.
Like they're all taking the SAT again. They all get into CMC.
The SAT. All right. So I am happy to take questions now. And any questions for anybody here?
Thanks, Jen. And I know that we've hit the 5 o'clock mark. So of course, if you do need to sign off, please feel free to do so. Hope to see many of you at 4 o'clock on Wednesday as we talk about enhancing engagement with our alumni and parent community. Thank you to our students and to Jen and Edna for all their help here. So let's go to a few more questions. If anybody wants to virtually raise their hand, or if anybody wants to put anything else into the chat, feel free to do so. We did have a few people come in and ask about alumni interviewing. I did mention they could email myself or Edna. And of course, if you want to help with the parent program, email any of us. But Jeannie Scalmanini, who is here, is our parent lead and manages all of our parent volunteers. So feel free to address her. Holly, if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, my question is, usually CMC gets all colleges get lots of names by buying SAT scores and demographics and things like that. How does that impact with students not taking the SATs this year, or even the PSATs, it seems? How is the admission world dealing with that gathering of data that they won't have?
It's a huge hole, definitely coming out of that, knowing, but there a lot of, I would say, in generally speaking, in higher education, fewer schools are relying on that as a primary source. So while it is there, and I think schools have it as part, this has just changed in terms of how students, with the advent of social media, with so many different kinds of platforms out there that are virtual for students to conduct their college search, that you can draw down names from there. So we haven't actually seen a huge hit in the inquiry database. I mean, it does take some creativity, taking a step back and saying, where are the students? What are different ways that we can engage and reach out to them? But CMC actually hasn't bought a ton of names in a while. It doesn't. I think that works very well when you have a shotgun approach and you want to just hit a bunch of students. And for CMC, we tend to find this more helpful at like the sophomore level and maybe the early junior. Like a lot of our students in general, like getting to them at the end of their junior year, just as an introductory piece, doesn't tend to be quite as impactful. That's
Jen,
a good question.
No, sorry, I thought we were moving on. Thanks, Holly, for your question. Jen, anything else you wanted to say on that matter? Perfect. We had a couple questions about international students. CMC is traditionally about 16-70% international. Do we see that changing, whether it's harder to come here or a less desirable outcome of attending college in the US? Where do we see international student enrollment going?
Yeah, I mean, trends are showing right now, this is preliminary and with the common application, that international apps are down, year over year. So I think there's just a lot of concern. Some of it is just pandemic and being so far from home. The United States has faced stiffer competition with education systems around the world. And then there's politics. So I think there's a lot of things that are going to play into this. We've continued CMCs, again, staying in constant with our stable. We're not seeing right now a decrease in our international students and their interest and their engagement. That could change, maybe we see a lower yield. I don't think it'll be as high as 19-20%. I think that was a watermark and kind of marquee in that regard. I think we'll see a bit of a decline in interest as we go through, and we'll just continue to monitor it and recruit and really it's allowing those students to share with us what their concerns are. And Connor Fritz and the counselors, he's done an extraordinary job keeping that going.
Thanks, Jennifer. A few alumni and parents are curious at who some of our big competitor schools are in the admission world. And then a follow-up question to that is, how do we think that will shift with COVID, especially as some of those schools might be open?
Students, do you know who our biggest competitor is? You guys take a wild guess.
Ramona?
It's a competitor, but not the biggest. It's in California.
I would say either Berkeley or USC.
It's actually
I guess, or Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford. And that is just consistent. When they release decisions, we know. There is no other institution that quite parallels, in terms of CMC anyways, that quite parallels them. Pomona is definitely, when it comes to liberal arts colleges, that is the one that is definitely there. And you do see Berkeley and UCLA and USC, and then you see Harvard, and the rest of the mix is broader, for Chicago, but Stanford by far and away.
So there's also probably, I always think of like U Chicago, some of the Ivy Leagues, maybe Vanderbilt, Emory, Georgetown, maybe Rice. I mean, obviously in California, it's always interesting because when I worked in admission, I would see where students would choose over us. And sometimes it was the local state school, but it's cheaper. It's in their backyard. It's a known commodity. Maybe there's a relationship there. Students pick schools for all kinds of different reasons. And it's the job of the admission office to kind of help a 17, 18-year-old select what to do. So Jen, how do you think that's going to change this year with students maybe not wanting to go far away? Maybe they want to stay close, or maybe they want to go to the school that was open, like Vanderbilt. How do you think that's going to kind of develop this year?
Yeah, the virtual is going to be interesting as we move through, and some a substantive amount of campuses were open in the fall. But the reality is most of them aren't open to full capacity. So there are, I think for students are still aware of the fact that no matter what, things are restricted. Nobody's having the kind of experience they would have had, a year ago at this time. So we'll continue to monitor that. I think with each group, we're just having a pulse on what our game plan is. I think one thing CMC has been very good about is saying, this is where we're at, this is what our plan is, and getting students to be a part of that conversation and a part of that process. And we'll continue to do that. They haven't expressed, to date, they're not expressing a concern about that. I think it's just because so many places are, and so many, depending on where they live, are still experiencing quite a few restrictions to their environment. So yeah, we'll continue to monitor that. Was there another part to the question? I know there was the, staying close, staying far away. What's really interesting, we thought initially when all this happened that the students, the further away that they were, the more likely they weren't to come, but that was actually not true. We were seeing our students from our backyard, Los Angeles County, San Bernardino County, going clear across to Boston, going to Florida, and the ones nearby were, the ones from far away were coming here. So this particular class didn't show necessarily a huge difference, this incoming class 2024, a big difference. In talking with students, this is just my sense, they are not concerned about leaving home right now. There might be, when push comes to shove and they get down to making those decisions, we don't know how a family dynamic plays out. But they seem to be in some ways more willing, just based off my anecdotal conversation, to try new things. Like they see it as, this is my lease on life. I'm getting out there. This is where I want to go, where I want to be. And they seem to be really having that kind of agency as we're moving through.
Jen, last question before we wrap up. What do you see that we've developed in this virtual world that you think will stay once we go back to normal? So I know like these virtual programs, we didn't do them before. We're going to keep doing some kind of virtual engagement programming for our alumni and parents. What do you envision?
Yeah, no, it's here to stay. I mean, it will be a supplement as opposed to being the principal form of recruiting. We will always want people coming to campus. We will always go out and meet people where they are. That's important. But we will constantly running online information sessions. We said that 2 days after we started doing them. These are not going anywhere. The ability to do them at 5 in the morning, the ability to do them 6 p.m. and just anywhere, it doesn't matter where the admission officer is something that, why would we ever get rid of that? How much we want to continue doing things like the campus tour, the virtual campus tour, we'll have to decide, and that may be something that we parse off and do a couple times a year for people to participate in. But yeah, the virtual part it's been extraordinary to engage with people on so many levels, in so many time zones, in so many ways.
All right, Jen. Well, thank you so much for that. Edna, thank you. Adrian, Jeremy. Do we still have?
She had to go to class.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, she's gone. We'll give her my thanks as well. I am going to put some of our emails in the chat that we talked about, including Jen's, mine, Jeannie's, Edna's. That way, if you want to reach out, please do so. And we're happy to help direct you in the right place. So you can pick one of us, pick all of us. Whatever suits you best. So thank you, everyone. Jen, Edna, everyone, thank you so much. Feel free to unmute, say thanks, say goodbye. Hopefully see you Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Bye all.